Scott, we can't hear you online. I don't know if you can hear us. Scott?
Oh, well, the
introduction was the best part of the meeting.
My audiovisual club president forgot to turn the mic on. So I gave the backstory.
So in conclusion,
in conclusion, does anybody have any questions? For all who are online, if you want me to give the backstory, just remind me kind of at the end, because it's or I'll reference it about halfway through when somebody reminds me about something. So just to read for everybody online, what is strategic communication? It's the purposeful use of communication to achieve a specific organizational goal by choosing a message that targets a specific audience to influence their perceptions and behaviors. And for those online, I'm going to talk to the slides a lot because this is the first time I've given this talk, so I haven't memorized all of this yet. The other thing that I said earlier was looking at corporations spending 5 to 14% of their annual revenue, and emphasize revenue, not profits, on outward-facing communications to influence the buying public's behavior. So the next 3 slides are some whys. Why strategic communication? Why do companies invest so much money? One is the audience wants to know your purpose and value without guessing. Number 2. Now, this is, to me, is really the crux of the entire discussion and how do we use. It's companies used to use strategic communication to influence and shape the public's decision process before that individual ever comes to a point where they decide, I need a service or a product that company actually offers. And then 3, the third why. And as much as I said, the prior slide was the crux, this I cannot emphasize too much. This strategic communications, it's the one time that we have the ability to control 100% of the editorial content and the means of delivery and how the end party sees it. It's about the only thing that we can do in marketing where we control 100% of what I'll term our selling story and how that's presented to the public. Okay, so there are 4 pillars of strategic communication. 1 is analyze your audience. 2 is choose the right means of communication. 3 is intentional message design. And the 4th are what's called the 3 C's: clarity, conciseness, and consistency. So I'm going to talk a little bit about all 3 of these, or all 4 of these, excuse me. 1, analyze your audience. It's understanding their priorities and perceptions. And this, again, is the biggest one of the biggest takeaways from reading about strategic communications is people's perception is their reality. And so understanding your audience, the way that I was thinking about this whole presentation, it's really focused on the public at large, the real estate, future people having real estate needs, and then it's focused on someone who you don't already have a connection with. They get your name from someone who may be a former client, but that client is not, their personality is not effusive in saying you must use this person because they are fabulous in these 72 different ways. Or somebody is not a former client and say, hey, this person is a real estate agent. So it's now that they have your information, your name, what comes next? And so that's the 2 audiences that strategic communications are designed to influence. The immediate, where somebody gets your name but doesn't have a connection with you already, they're not on your SOI, they're not getting your mailers or emails, and then just the outward facing presentation of who we are as real estate professionals. So the audience is the public. Tell me I'm wrong on this. What's the public perception? What's the public perception of, of the real estate industry as a whole. It's not good. We've allowed what we do to be dumbed down in the perception of the public. We don't do a lot and we ask to get paid a lot, and choice of agent doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, I gotta comment on this second point here. Do little work, get paid a lot. The ones that do little work get paid little. That's the reality.
That's a fair point.
I had to
Yeah.
say that.
What I'm saying, do little work is they've hired you.
Perception.
Yeah, they've hired you as an agent, or someone observes. For example, I think one of the best thing about this and this is how many times have we talked to people, clients, friends, and they look at listings and they have crappy photos, they are duplicative, they are out of order, the listing narrative is sparse and full of real estate, things that don't say anything, like gleaming hardwood floors, to get onto one of my little issues about narrative. And the house sells.
Yeah.
So how much does it matter what agent you choose? We know it matters a lot, but the public's perception about what we do is not great. That's not a bad thing because, again, perception is reality. So that's their reality. That's their mindset of, I'm going to talk to an agent that I don't already know. Well, my perception or level of expectation is here. So that's like the baseline of the public. So let's, Anthony, next slide. So leverage this to your benefit. If the public's perception of real estate agents is not good, use it to your advantage. So everything that you are saying, your selling story, your outward facing presentation, it's confounding their expectation as to what a true real estate professional does, and just as importantly, does not do. So you're creating their new reality on real estate exceptionalism. If their expectation is a 5 out of 10, and everything that you do visually, narratively, verbally is a 9, well, that's there. Now you've just become superhuman in their perception because you are so far outside of their level of expectation based upon what they see every day in our profession. So 2, choose the right means of communication. And there's 3. It's visual, narrative, and spoken, verbal. By the way, if anybody wants to, from the design perspective, all this was done in Canva. And it took me half a day. So we've got 3, visual, narrative, and spoken word. Next. Sorry.
Narrative. And what was that?
Spoken word,
Got it.
verbal.
Okay, got it.
So the next slide gets into the wonderful category of attention span. So if you do some research,
2025 attention span.
yeah, and you do some online research and read some stuff, attention span, no surprise, has continued to decline over time. Now, I haven't done a correlation, but I imagine it's the inverse of how many people are using their phone and for, yeah. So the really useful knowledge about it, human attention span. So it's, as short as 8 seconds. You'll hear the adage, not as long as a goldfish, or the attention span of a goldfish. That's probably apocryphal based upon a study that turned out to be somewhat discredited, but say it's 8 seconds, perhaps as long as 2 minutes, depending upon what data you look at. Here's the important thing. People have a longer attention span to visual and written information. When you're looking at 8 second or short end of that attention span, it's verbal. So just keep that in mind about when we're talking about how do you use strategic communications and present what you do as an agent to have the most impact, because people can take it in the means that they will pay attention more. So what's the best means to communicate visual and narrative information? Website. It's a single best medium for you to provide visual and narrative information in precisely the manner in terms of specific information and overall, overall impact versus anything else. And that's not to say that social media doesn't have a place here, because this is all about, later on, we'll talk about consistency across platforms. But it's not, those are not set up. If you think about, you go to a business, a successful real estate team that has a website. You've got drop-down menus. You can say client testimonials, our selling process, all of that is visually right in the field of view. Whereas TikTok or YouTube or Instagram are more sound and visual motion. Facebook has a good combination of visual and narrative. However, think about how that information is presented. It's presented in a scrolling column, whereas a website is pages that provide the full spectrum of what you do, and it's easier to navigate.
That was what I was gonna ask, so if it's mostly visual and narrative, take into account that the shorts and stuff like that is predominantly a talking head.
It is. And the other thing, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but if you type your name into the great Google machine and say real estate agent, the three things that are the top three that are likely to come up are your Zillow profile, your realtor.com profile. And if you have a website, whether it's a KW website, that's going to be number 3. So if someone's getting your name and they don't already have a connection with you and they plug your name in, okay, I'm going to look at those 3. Even though it's likely third, a website, chances are they're going to go to that first, particularly if it's your name,
Sold by Scott.
or whatever it happens to be. It's like, or just your first and last name.com. Visually, they're probably likely to go to that first. Okay, so what does that have? So again, website leverages the best means of communication. It's visual and narrative. So here's the other thing, thinking about we're talking about listings. The listing face-to-face meeting is the in-person showing. What happens before the in-person showing? People look at photos, they look at the listing narrative, and if that's done well, that's your opportunity to build an emotional connection or a level of emotional expectation by that prospective buyer to say, this looks better than what I've been seeing, whether I've been looking for 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months. Let's go see this. That's what we tell our selling clients. Marketing matters. Quality of photos matter. Quality of information matters. We're missing that piece if the entirety of listing presentation is done face-to-face. So again, think about the strategic communication as the listing of the house. It's the opportunity to set the stage, create that emotional expectation, that level of connection, that they're forward-leaning as they decide to come see the house, saying, wow, this looks good. This could be our new home.
So are you saying that the, what do you call it, something communication?
Strategic communication?
This is all before you're meeting with them?
Yes. Yeah,
Got
and
it.
I'll get it. This is not a
Like you said,
substitute.
This is the one place where you have 100% control of your message.
Right. And I'll get into that both in terms of it's not a substitute.
Right.
It's a supplement to the human-to-human connection. So this gets into the control. Face-to-face interaction gives up some control over message delivery. You've got the content and flow of what you're wanting to say can get influenced by human, environment, and time factors. You're nervous. You as an agent aren't 100% confident in how do I talk about myself as a real estate professional. You're trying to figure out this profile so you can mirror and match. Now, there are people that can do that contemporaneously which is an amazing skill, but most of us aren't like that. Environment is just the noise, time factors. It's how much attention span does the homeowner have? Do they have two kids running around and say, hey, I've only got, whatever. So again, you still can have the opportunity to share your presentation and answer questions and engage. But again, you don't have 100% control over that situation. Okay, intentional message design. This gets back to subverting the expectations of the public and or somebody who you don't know, gets your name, looks you up online, and what they see immediately is different in a obviously better way to their perception of what real estate agents do. If you look at most real estate agent websites, whether it's the brokerage template, doesn't matter the brokerage, you go to most of them, they will have the generic search, they'll have a photo, they'll have name, they'll have contact info. It's basically a static page, and maybe they have a little bit of narrative about who they are, and that's it. So if you think about, that's what most people see and expect, and you have something that doesn't have to be epic, but you're working off of what they expect to see and have seen. It's just like when you're listing your client's house and your client's house is neated up, the photos are great, versus a competing house that looks like some sluggo agent got out of bed that morning and just, here's my phone and we're good. So here's the other thing. That's the whole thing about strategic communications as it applies to real estate is make whatever you're saying and however you're saying it, make the seller conclude that they have undervalued what an agent does and the difference that choosing you, i.e. the right agent, will make in the selling process. And the selling process is not just sale result, money and time. It's also intangibles, which I'll get into because I don't think we talk about that enough. The intangible benefit we bring to clients. So again, what's your selling story? What's your X factor? Is it 1, 2, 3 things? Think about if I'm doing, it's whether you want to use the term elevator pitch, or if I am given carte blanche to come up with a presentation of why I am a top tier professional, and if you have a real estate need, you must choose me. Inexorably, you conclude, I want to be in business with any of us. Think about that. Spend the time to create that editorial content, refine it so that is again, get back to it's the one thing that we have 100% control of. So yeah, so your exceptionalism versus the public perception. Leverage off what the public thinks we do and don't do. And don't forget the intangible benefits. We focus so much about tangible, time and sale price, money. We don't talk as much as we should about working with a high-end profession, serious real estate professional. There's more confidence in the plan. They understand it more. There's less uncertainty. There's less stress. Now, that's a subjective thing that's different for everybody, but I can guarantee you it's a non-zero number for every single human. And I don't think we talk enough about the intangible benefits. And again, it gets back to people's perception that we don't do a lot. Well, yes, we do. And that's part of the story that we have to tell people, that the amount of work, and because of the planning, because of the forward thinking, that you can either, what's our charity contribution for? Okay. So, see, I lost my whole train of thought. Let's start over. Yeah. Or the end.
But the intangible.
Yeah, the intangible.
Love to really peel down on that.
Yeah.
But let me give you I just got this yesterday from a new newsletter that I've subscribed to via Sheila. It's fantastic. This guy does a newsletter based only on the realtor industry and everything else that affects it. And he sent out a thing yesterday 40% of productive agents in AR. 40% sell 1 to 2 deals per year. What he was saying was the onesie twosies casual agents are not going away. The prices are such that 1 to 2 per year is fine. Now, what I picked up on that was it was 40% of productive.
Right.
There's 500,000 that sell 0. So you got 500,000 plus 40%, you've got 800 and some thousand agents that are creating this perception.
Yes.
And so, and I'll get that chart. You'll love this chart. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And I'm going to use that in my listing presentation. Who you go on business with, Mrs. Johnson, matters.
Yeah.
And the intangible, I think, is where I kind of fall down. I don't really talk a lot about that.
We don't think about it because
Yeah.
we're so focused. And one, that perception will almost never change because there's just too many examples month after month, year over year of just poor real estate agenting.
Used car sales.
Well, yeah, and one of the analogies,
Yeah.
one of the analogies that I like to use is in this area in particular, buying your new home or selling your house to get on to the next phase of your life is the equivalent, because of our price point, of buying or selling a small business. If you were doing that, you would have the best contracts attorney, business attorney you could get, and the best accountant, financial person you can get. Why do you not demand the same from a real estate professional? Why do you?
Trying to write this one
Yeah.
down here, right?
Well, people settle for less because they don't see a difference in the choices. And again, the people that we're already in contact with, they know that. They know we're different, that we're, very focused, very professional in everything we do. This is outward facing for people that get our name through means that we don't even know. So yeah, that gets into intangible about how do we talk about what we do and the cost. And the cost is not just money and time. It's stress. It's uncertainty. And a lot of people, that's a huge, not only is it non-zero, it's a huge number about if you can convincingly talk to folks who have a very high, they're nervous in writ large about stuff. If you have the ability to talk to them and say, hey, I understand that my approach is to play, chess, not checkers, anticipate issues, anticipate questions so that you're never wondering about, well, what's going on? And there's any number of ways I think we can talk about the intangible benefit that it's.
Just to keep massaging that, selling your house is like selling a small business. You would have the best legal and financial experts you could afford. Why wouldn't you do the same for your largest asset? Then you pull out and say, so am I the absolute best, meaning the highest number? No, but let me show you where I do stand.
Right.
500,000 agents who have websites out there from their brokerages don't sell anything.
Right.
40% of the remaining ones do 1 to 2 deals a year. And then you got this number and this number. I play here.
You're a professional, not a hobbyist.
Yeah, this is where I play. I don't play down here with the onesie twosie. And that's nothing against you getting started guys and all that stuff, because our expectations, you start getting one a month, okay? I play up here, and that's why I am exceptional.
Yeah, and I chose the word exceptional, surprisingly for me, as obsessive as I have, very particular word. Exceptional does not mean you're the best. It is you are better than the norm. And that's, again, leveraging off of the public's perception of what real estate agents do and don't do. So yeah, this to me is we don't think about the soft benefit, the intangible that we actually deliver every transaction, frankly, every conversation that we have. Okay, 3 C's: clarity, conciseness, and consistency. Next slide. That's okay. So clarity. I translated that into stated in a way that the seller will readily understand how they will benefit from you as their agent. So anything that your entire selling story should be looked at through this prism. Are we, what I'm saying, what I'm showing, the entire package? Put yourself in the reader's position. Is it easy for them to understand how what you're talking about will benefit them, either tangibly or intangibly? And wow, this is a high-end professional. I would feel confident having this person represent me in whatever my real estate need is, whether it's buying or selling. So, yeah, concisely. Why did I put stay focused? Concise. Okay. Probably because I end up talking about many different things. So in storytelling, less is more. So it doesn't have to be a massive amount of things. In fact, less is often more when we're furnishing a house. Or it's not, it's someone living there. The whole concept of decluttering is less presents a better picture. So just think about, it doesn't have to be expansive. It doesn't have to be 7 pages on a website. It's just whatever you decide to communicate, make it, always edit it, look at the editing. So, okay, can I say this in fewer words? Can I show this aspect of, the buying or selling process in a combination of fewer visuals and fewer words? And then again, this gets to the editing process. Okay, if I'm telling my selling story and I want to talk about my approach, I term it the Bellicasa difference. However you want to do it. Yes, you create that narrative to say what you want to say. You're also having visuals, but also look at the entirety. So if we're talking about websites here, if somebody pulls up the website, their first reaction is, before they read anything, that's professional. That looks good. That looks impressive. Just like a house, when we're doing the visuals, it's not any one photo, but think about the totality and how they're sequenced, and it just gives an overall very positive impression of the quality of the house, the presentation of the house. And the last is, consistency. Okay. So whatever your message is, every platform, keep that in mind. Every platform you're using for real estate. So whether it's a website or Facebook or any other social media or any marketing you do, keep in mind what's your overall message you're trying to communicate. Whether that's visual communication of the entirety just looks professional. It's not, again, part of leveraging off of perception is think about, just something like real estate postcards. How many postcards do residents get? And they just have, the line items of houses sold, and, turns out the person never had any, sold any of them, but visually they see it over and over and over again. And it looks like it's a plug and play. Think about that. If you're trying to design a postcard, that it's different than what they may see or what you may see getting postcards in your own house. The consistency of the message, it reinforces your selling story and builds trust. Okay, stats. A couple weeks ago, we had a speaker in for a team meeting who talked about, these are NAR stats from 2023. They came out they're 2024. Came out November of last year. So 81% of sellers say, I hire the person I meet. And then what are the factors? Let's see. What is it? Reputation, trustworthiness, and honesty. Okay. So thinking about strategic communications. Oh, sorry. Okay. So the decision that you're shaping is not to hire you. The decision you're shaping is to get the meeting.
Because you're 81% of their way there.
Well, you're 81%. And the other thing is, if you're using strategic communications, so this is again, somebody that you don't already have a relationship with. They get your name unknown number of ways. They go online and see what you have. If you're using strategic communication and they say, I want to have a showing at Anthony Carr's house, which is effectively what it is. That 81% is probably going to be high 90s because they're like you've already leveraged what they expected. And it's like, wow, this is so much better. I want to meet with that person, whatever versus let's play the alternate scenario. They get your name somehow. They look you up online, Zillow, Realtor.com, and your KW.com website. And they go to all three. And they look like they look. They look like most look.
Silhouette picture.
What's the even worse. What's the chance, just like a house that your buyer client's looking at, and the photos are awful, they're few, they're dark. The house looks dark because the sluggo agent didn't open the blinds and didn't turn lights on. Or they use it, or combination of all of those. And they had your name, but because of what they saw initially, they say, you know what? I feel no compelling reason to contact this person, and they continue on. So you never get the meeting. So that to me it's about getting that person or the public that somebody in a community, pass on the name to somebody. They look at that, your website, whatever, your social media, all of that. They get that, wow, this is impressive. They don't have a real estate need for 18 months. You're already hired and you don't know it. That's what strategic communications is applied to real estate. It's influencing that decision before they ever get to a need for whatever. In our case, it's help on a real estate issue, buying, selling, investing, whatever it happens to be, rentals. Okay, final thoughts. And oh, by the way, I didn't ask any particular person, but y'all didn't remind me about the Toronto agent. But I'll still tell you what you said because it's awesome. Okay. Develop your selling story for seller to draw the inescapable conclusion they must be in business with you. That's the whole purpose of strategic communications. Whatever you end up doing, think about it from that perspective. And this is something I thought about driving over here, and I need to incorporate this. Move percentages and opportunities in your direction. So this is the entire premise of this. What I'm putting out makes it more likely that people want to be in the business of any of us. Again, Anthony brought this up. Strategic communication is a supplement to, it's not a replacement for the personal meeting. It's to help you get that meeting. And then at that point, it's answering questions. It's determining, personality, or, how do I deal with this client as a good fit? Shaping the outcome is strategic. Presenting and reacting in a face-to-face meeting is tactical. And that's in this podcast last December. That was sort of what they were talking about, which again, we're talking about influencing, not closing the deal, so to speak, getting the opportunity. And lessen the pressure to get everything right in a face-to-face meeting. This particularly for agents that haven't had a lot of time in the profession or face-to-face, haven't refined what am I as a real estate professional. That can be pretty, stressful for you. Reduce the stress of that. One, if you do the strategic communications, you are going to refine what you are as a real estate professional. And then it will become conversational because you had to create this content, create this story. Well, that story now becomes you internalize that, and I can talk about that, in a conversational style and increase your confidence in that face-to-face. Yeah.
One other thing is it shortens the face-to-face meeting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's all about them only.
So one of the things that I've now done and this really is the communities I farm for the most part. So a lot of times I'm already hired. But my listing presentation is a couple days beforehand, I send them links to 3 recent property websites, my Bella Casa property website, and my, living in Overlook, living in West End Alex, living in Landmark Muse. And I've done that outside of the community. Say everything that I do as an agent, data analysis, visual presentation, attention to detail, and everything I do is shown in these websites. So instead of having that all in a presentation face-to-face, which has the potential of coming across as, well, I just created this for this meeting. They're looking at stuff that already exists, and it doesn't have to be transactions. It's just website. They look to it. This is how I do my business. It's not something uniformly created or singly created for this opportunity. So that can give a little more credibility that it's an ongoing bedrock part of what you do as a real estate professional. And I think that's it. So let me, I wanted to make a lot of this as a mastermind, but let me share the story from this Toronto agent at this in this podcast. So he said when he talks to prospective selling clients, he talks about what he termed the minimum standard of care that and he was talking about top tier professional will do. Great photos, maybe drone footage, other things. And then he took all of that and put it in a box down here. And my baseball analogy is, I took all of the competition, whether you've talked to somebody else or thinking about it or your perception of other agents, and put them at AA level baseball. Now I'm going to talk to you about what I do on top of the minimum standard of care, which is not minimum. It's, his point was, it's high-end stuff that is just the bare minimum. Let me talk about other things on top of that you get from working with me, which I thought was an absolutely epically brilliant way to just essentially dismiss, not in a pejorative way, not saying they're bad at what they do, just take everybody else and put them at this minimum level of care. Let me talk to you about how my process is over and above that. And when he said, it was like, my God, that is just, a brilliant way to talk strategically, even though it's in a tactical environment, a face-to-face. Man, that's brilliant. And I don't even think you have to do it from this is a minimum level of care that top tier agents do. From leveraging the perception is, okay, here's what, most agents do. And some of it can be not positive because you're leveraging off of what they've seen online, which is really poor photos, out of sequence photos that the one that really I think is even better than just saying out of sequence. And out of sequence, I mean, exterior front, entry, living room, another bedroom, and it bounces around. It's not the visual walkthrough of the house as you normally would progress through a house. But how many times have we seen listings where it turns out the house has a really nice kitchen remodel, particularly for that type of property? And it's photo number 17. And they show stuff like 4 exterior front photos and the living room and all that. And the best photo to show off in the house is number 17. Well, what if somebody just gets bored and says, I'm not. And even particularly if the photos aren't great, if they see a really nice kitchen, even if the lighting's not great and the composition is not the best, if they see it early, it's like, oh, wow, I know it's there. So if you have not great photos and your best selling aspect of that asset is buried deep in, again, thinking about attention spans. And even though people have a longer attention span for visual, it's like, well, how many times do I see, the living room in 7 different, angles, all 4 corners, and then I'm moving over 6 inches to the right and showing the same thing. You just get bored.
It's because you can put 50 photos up.
Well, no. And that's the other thing. It's like, think about how many photos, because, people's short attention spans and
Picture of a
yeah,
floral arrangement.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do that on if you're doing a walkthrough video, that's called B-roll. So
Yeah.
that works. But on photos, generally speaking, unless it's something pretty epic, and unusual and like, that's really nice. I want to make sure that's, or looking down on a townhouse that has 3 stories or 4 stories and looking down the stairwell. It's like, okay, great. But I just thought that was a brilliant way to talk about I'm different. What I do is a higher level, and that produces better results, both tangible, intangible. And it's easy to understand because leveraging off of what people's perceptions are, their perception is based upon things that they have seen. Listings, people complaining about their agent that, they didn't do anything. And at the end of the day, they get, paid this. And so that's their perception. So everything that we're doing from strategic communication standpoint is basically the opposite of that. It's like the George Costanza approach for those of you who watched, Seinfeld. It's like, if every thought that I do, every action I do is wrong, then that means, or Jerry Seinfeld said that to George, it's like, then the opposite may be, has to be right. So it's a play on that. I mean, to some degree, but that's, I think, from a mindset approach and how do you use strategic communications to discuss what we do, that's really, it's applicable. Think about what everything that we've ever heard the public say negative about what we do. And a lot of it's true. It's not true with us, but a lot of it's true. Take that, understand that's likely their perception, change their reality by giving them a different view.
Yeah.
So, questions, thoughts, get off stage.
Scott, in your pre-listing packet that you send to your clients, you send them the content and everything that shows your difference. Do you also send like any data or like numbers or like CMA or anything like that?
Not there. I want people to look at my website, property websites, whenever they have time. I send it 2 or 3 days ahead of time, and they can look at it at their leisure. And again, in a format that, I chose, content that I chose, refined, whatever. Shout out to Rashawn. I had my websites. I like my website, but Rashawn said, you know what, your photo's not high enough up on the homepage. We were talking and I said, damn it, he's right. I had my logo up there. So I ended up moving photo up higher and say, yeah. And it was better. It was at the bottom. Yeah. I had at the top were scrolling photos of houses that I've sold, and I had my logo up there. And Rashawn said, "Yeah, you need your." Yeah, I was trying to hide that, but it was And again, that's the other thing. With strategic communications, you get to refine this as you go along. But if you don't have it, it's a lost opportunity. And the best analogy I can think of is comparing it to us trying to market a selling client's house and how important we know the visual is to driving interest. And we don't do that with our own marketing, our own business.
I think this is the core slide.
Yeah.
Leverage the perception to your advantage, confound their expectation as to what a true real estate professional does and does not do. Create the new reality, and you're starting the new reality with your introductory materials and your harmonious messaging, so that when you get there, you're able to talk to, well, this is what they're answering a question.
Yeah. Frankly, the objective is you're already hired, not simply because you got the meeting and 80% get it. It's like what they've seen. It says, yeah, you have to talk yourself out of getting this, or it's a scenario that, will happen. They interview you, they know they should hire you, and they hire the friend's gardener's, cousin who's a real estate agent. I mean, that happens. But again, as I was driving over here, I thought about all of this is designed to move percentages and opportunities in your direction. And it's really critical. No, so here's an example that hasn't led to business, but I checked this yesterday and was like, oh, well, that's interesting. So I have a blog on my website, and it's market news for you. And it's just a lot of the charts you see that I I do are on there. And in January, I posted two short, they're like 15-second videos. They went to my Instagram account. And then posted them on the website. And they were an update on the new Inova Alexandria Hospital campus project update, and then the Landmark Overlook project, which is across Duke Street from West End Alexandria project. I checked yesterday. I have for the Inova 133 views, and for surprisingly, the Landmark Overlook had 154. So that's 270 people visiting my website. Now, let's assume some of those viewed both, but that's people coming to my website just because I did, blog posts and did the SEO stuff. And I use Wix for my website. But from what I can tell, the KW website has a lot of functionality built into it that you can incorporate a blog and put your own stuff in. A lot of times I'll see, whether it's any agent, any brokerage, the blog stuff is stuff already created by the brokerage, and not that it's bad, it's like a buying guide or things like that, but it also is not personalized or localized to our area or dynamic. So that was an eye-opening thing to me about, okay, that was a way for people to come to my website, and chances are they probably looked at something else. And again, I don't know there's any way to track that, but that could be somebody that 6 months from now says, oh, I already know who, this person because of what they saw. And the one thing I would tell any agent that doesn't already have a robust, whether it's website or your own, marketing approach that's working really well, is make the KW website your own. Add additional functionality to it so it looks different than Agent X from Coldwell Banker or whoever else they look at. The other thing that I thought, I just did this recently, I looked at, and Rashana made a point, this was last year, he made a point about going to all homes.com, Zillow, realtor.com, looking at the profile and making sure what's on there is what you want's on there. And which is brilliant advice. I just happened to think about, I went back to my Zillow and Realtor, which are actually above the first two, if you put Scott Ford real estate agent. And in the bio or the information was fine. But I realized, okay, and there is a hot link to your website. I checked yours out. So yeah, and it goes to your website. But what I decided is at the top, the first line of the bio, for more information about Scott Ford and Bella Costa Partners, please see, and it's my website URL. So like at the very top, they have a queue of somewhere to go. It's not a hot link, but it's a queue that there is a website rather than risk. Does somebody see the hot link way down below? And again, that's driving people to the one thing that you have 100% control of in message. So
Good deal.
yeah,
It sounds like basically because of what all the strategic marketing communication you've done in advance, by the time you actually get to the door, really the only thing you're taking in there is the stuff about their house and their pricing and that stuff.
maybe they have a question about something they read, but it really gets down to, again, we could talk about that at a listing presentation, but again, it's verbal. There's other, environment factors. You may not have time to say everything quite, and nothing impacts better to the cortex is things that you see with your eyes and like this. I mean, again, I could have had in a PowerPoint presentation, every single line on this with a dot and the information. Wouldn't look or be anywhere near as effective as taking time to combine narrative and visual in a compelling way. And so that's, again, the more I said this a few times already, the more I think about it, the best analogy is treat how our outward facing element of our business just the way we would in marketing a selling client's house. And we all know the value and benefit of the visual presentation of the house, both as a medium to get them to come in, but then also, I'd also say part of that is when they're in the house. And well, now it's three-dimensional. This part of it is also part of that, in-person viewing, because you're influencing their decision whether or not to make an offer and the quality of the offer. If they look at first weekend, they see, wow, this house looks really good online. The narrative, really smart, really informative. Probably two things have a chance to occur. One, the buyer in their head says, oh, a lot of people are going to be like me and say, I like this house, so we may get a lot of competition. The other thing is a listing agent or a buyer's agent, and maybe the buyer. They look at a listing where the photos are great, they're in great order, the listing present or the listing narrative is not in all caps, is not a bunch of, meaningless words, gleaming hardwood floors. All caps. Like I can't tell from the photo if they're gleaming or not, or maybe I can't because the photo's so poor.
Yeah.
But they say, hey, this is probably an agent, a listing agent that knows what they're doing. So again, you're increasing credibility and goodwill from a negotiating standpoint if you're working. So you can influence not only potentially making an offer, but the quality of the offer. If they think, hey, the house is going to draw competition, this is a smart agent because, hey, the agent's providing information not just about the community, but things around, and not in West End Alexandria where you say you're close to DC, the Pentagon, Reagan, and Amazon HQ2. And nobody mentions $2.2 billion development at West End Alexandria because they don't know.
Yeah.
But
This
if
is excellent. So what was a takeaway from this? I've got several, but what's a good takeaway? And then what are some questions you have on this?
Yeah.
Well, for me is being attention to detail you put in on your listing, to sell it, turn around that on your website, because we're selling our stuff. At the end of the day, the seller is not, they're buying, they're betting on us, not just what you do. So how we position ourselves from visual, move over to visual. It's so funny. I think I watch Pina Call. I think she's from EXP in North Carolina. 2 years ago, I've been watching her. This is exactly what she teaches. Like, even when listing presentation, when I go, it's like there is the presentation, there is the average agent do, and then what I do differently, what sets me apart.
Yeah.
That's why you need me. It's like, okay, so I didn't know what I was doing. I just copied what she's doing, but that was a strategy.
Yeah. And so when I talk about building out your website, again, it doesn't have to be epic. And when I did mine, I went to successful real estate teams and looked at, okay, how do they present information visually? What kind of information? And said, okay, I'm not copying it verbatim because that's not what I do. I mean, that's not what I do from a copyright infringement, but it's not, I do things differently. We all do. But you can look at and say, oh, look at half a dozen and say, wow, that looks good. That component looks good. How do I, now Wix has, more intuitive flexibility than, but you still can do that with the KW website. Say, hey, let me have more drop-down options, like just the properties that you'd like on your website. Every single property that you've sold and helped buy, that needs to be on so people have some context of what you've done. But even if you don't have it, because I was thinking about this, this is, somebody that's doesn't have a lot of or has none, that's fine.
What's your site, Scott?
BellaCasaPartners.com. Yeah.
The attention to detail on Scott's website, including like the font that he picked and the way that the image is presented and all the top parts, and it's awesome. And I like his picture right there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. That's all him. But because you think about it, there's a lot of successful agents that have a lot of transactions. If somebody went to their website and looked at it, and it's a static page of photo in silhouette and whatnot. And this person doesn't know what they've done because there's not already that connectivity. It's very easy for that person to just say, okay, I'm not compelled to follow follow this name that I got. You're again trying to move percentages and opportunities in your direction. And this is something that we can do. And it takes a little time. But the other benefit is if you're thinking about what's my selling story, then it just becomes second nature about you have that conversation, that opportunity to distill it down to the three things that I do. Micro market analysis, a focus on visual presentation and attention to detail in everything I do, visually, narratively, and verbally. And I am seeing from doing this. And so I did somebody, Stephanie asked me this yesterday because we were talking about this. And I did this, I think it was the end of 23. It's, I had nothing online. And, me being obsessive about certain things, I said, well, let me see about creating a website and, got onto Wix and then again, looked at a lot of different real estate websites just to say, okay, what commonalities am I seeing? So again, you think about if someone has viewed high-end websites, whether it's real estate or not, and you've got some of the same things, again, that can communicate or create credibility. And then just went to work adding photos and thinking about, we all have, or most of us have, our narrative about what we do. Not the bio, which is important, but what we do, us as a real estate professional. Incorporate that in because most agents don't. And this is about, again, people that get your name that are not already in your SOI, getting them to see you as their option, whether it's at that time or, hey, and the best thing that I've had come out of doing the website is there's a couple people who I didn't know who were stalking me, told me they were stalking me online. Wow. And did it in a nice way. I mean, but they said, yeah, we were stalking you, I'd never communicated with them. And that's where it came to me. It's like, there are opportunities for us to be already hired and we don't even know it. But that takes something that's not what we already have, which is adding people to the SOI, emails, check-ins and things like that. It's people that get our name somehow.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah,
I didn't know you could put the banner on top of that. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. So I just added that.
Yeah.
That's my Facebook banner that I changed and figured out what's the proper pixel and put it in there. I said, okay, that's cool.
Video.
I didn't see this last year.
Yeah, using my.
That's from an old listing of mine. I didn't think to put an actual banner up there.
I didn't either until I was, working this up and I said, hey, I need to check and make sure what's on these and
Yeah, I need to redo that.
But was that this year or you before? Last year. She
I like
did.
your logo.
I didn't put my logo in there.
Yeah, you did the logo's great on your.
It stands out.
Oh, mine? Oh, it's black and gold because I grew up in Pittsburgh, so
Yeah.
I made
What I like
I
is
have
that
a lot of black.
I just
Yeah.
thought, oh, okay, I'll put a
Same
picture up
reason.
there. I need to create a banner
Mhm.
that has my logo, the company then, and then something, and then housing. That's much better than the little seashore thing I have there.
Yeah.
So, very good. But yeah, and this is part of the strategic communication that you're doing.
Yeah, so just think about,
Putting
Got it.
your website.
I just thought of that like 2 days ago, thinking, hey, trying to, again, 100% that we can control, trying to drive somebody where you want them driven.